Welcome to Devil's Advocate, where we give you 3D movie reviews in 2D. Last night we saw Alita, Battle Angel. I don't think it's the Battle Angel. I think it's just Alita,
there's
Battle
a
Angel.
there, yeah.
Hell yeah. Based on the famous manga from the 90s?
James Cameron was wanting to work on this after Titanic, so it's been around for a while.
Yeah, he said like 20 years when he discovered it. Anyway, it's written by James Cameron and another fella that I don't know the name of. It's produced by legendary producer John Landau and directed by legendary director Robert Rodriguez. It's the new highly anticipated Mahershala Ali, Christoph Waltz, woman who's not that famous, and Jennifer Connelly movie that you've been seeing the trailer for, if you're like us, for literally over a year, ever since the Star Wars movie that came out in 2017, because this movie was supposed to come out in December, and it was delayed. It's a big, bombastic, epic, 3D, partially CGI animated movie that's going to be coming into your eyeballs in 2 weeks. There's a lot of hype around this one, and they've been showing it to a lot of people, doing these sort of exclusive, fun, fan, early screening things to get the hype out. And last night we attended a screening in, what format, Evan?
So this was the new Dolby 3D format.
Not really new, just rare, right?
Oh.
So John Favreau's Jungle Book was in Dolby 3D like 4 years ago. It's just that it's like such an involved process to convert movies to 3D in Dolby.
If you haven't heard us nerd out about it before, we do really like the Dolby format. Like IMAX is usually the best way to go, but if you can't see something in IMAX, it's really not much of a step down to see something in Dolby. They do make the blacks look great. The sound quality, because it has the Dolby Atmos, is incredible. So in general, we are pretty excited for the technical aspects of the movie going in.
I've been talking about baggage, though, going into movies recently, and this is a franchise that, A, I didn't know really much about besides the teasers, and B, I'll admit that we were the type of people that were not necessarily excited for a movie like Alita. We were kind of rolling our eyes and laughing at the big eyes and the goofy sort of sincerity of the trailer of like, these hands, you choose to do whatever you want to do with them, Alita. Like, you're a whatever. Like that sort of like real sincerity with a lot of fantastical, not grounded, goofy sci-fi fantasy stuff that usually doesn't hit the right chord with us. That being said, you cannot bet against James Cameron, and as a result, I was a little bit cautiously optimistic about this project, even though I had, like I said, a little bit of a cynical tinge when I saw at least those earlier teasers, knowing that with the subsequent trailers they put out throughout the year, she definitely started to look better. As a character. But yeah, let's get into what we actually thought of Alita, Battle Angel. Here's how I would sum up the damn movie. It's relentlessly entertaining, and that's it. That's all it's got. What do you think?
I would say that Alita swings big with absolutely everything it does. That obviously goes true for all the technical stuff that you're going to hear about. I'm sure every TV spot's going to tell you how the world is intricately amazing. One cool thing is that after the movie, we got to hear Q&A, and just knowing the depth of how many sets and stuff were built, which comes across. It does feel like it felt similar to some of these Star Wars movies we're getting, where it is a mix of practical and CGI, not full-on Robert Rodriguez done Sin City. The big swing stuff also goes to the emotional core of this movie. It is like really broad, and in many ways it made me think of like, this is like more of a kid's movie than it was pitched to me personally. Like, if you take away the gruesome violence, which is kind of bloodless,
and the F word, Alita says "f***, guys."
If you take away the F word, if you take away the violence, which is in some ways gruesome, in some ways not, because there's no blood, it really has like the heart of a kid's movie, where it's just like we're really gonna have this moralistic lead character. It's all about dreams and accomplishing things. There's not a ton of shades of gray here. It's all pretty. It swings big everywhere,
which is a good choice. I think overall, as far as character work here, what is fun and interesting about Alita, aside from the fact that, as we'll get into, it's beautifully rendered and shot. The character is really happy-go-lucky and aggressive.
It's kind of like SpongeBob who kills people.
Yeah, which is cool. Like and I think that's why people like the original source material. And if that's what you're into, and I read a review while I was sitting on the toilet waiting for the movie to start, because they had done the premiere a couple hours earlier in London, and then the reviews were starting to flood in. And someone said that they were like, what's interesting about Alita is like, she never stops smiling, which is pretty rare for like these warrior type movies, and it's true. That's what's fun about it. It kind of reminded me of like Kiki's Delivery Service and other sort of Japanese properties that I was into as a child, where there is a fun sense of whimsy to the violence, or even Dragon Ball Z if you want to go like super mainstream with this sort of stuff. Where I don't know, Japanese anime material is ultimately like really high stakes and really violent, but it's never lost that like there's fun and there's often kid characters and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. So what I want to say about the script is that James Cameron is a wonder. All of his strengths and all of his weaknesses are on display here. He's an excellent storyteller. All of his stories connect succinctly. All of the threads come together. It pulls on all of the sort of like, it checks all of the boxes that you need to tell a sort of grand story like this. And thankfully, mercifully, this movie is like barely 2 hours. It's a really nice runtime. James Cameron obviously makes really bloated movies sometimes, but this one very tight. But his dialogue always kind of sucks. And I think the cringiest thing going on here is the fact that the script is just really lame at points. You know, like there's not clever dialogue. The things that the characters say are way too direct and on the nose often, to the point where it sort of wrings the emotion out of it, especially for the more melodramatic scenes. So it's got all of the things that you love and hate about a James Cameron movie, you know, to a T or whatever. It's very Avatar-esque. And what's also Avatar about it is it's literally some of the best CGI I've ever seen in a movie in my entire life. Alita herself, who's totally animated, is incredible. She's the best thing you've seen since the Na'vi in Avatar, truly. It looks gorgeous in 3D. And what's so crazy is the performance from this young actress, and she's not that young, she's playing a teenager, but she is 32. The performance is sometimes great and sometimes not great. There's definitely a lot of challenges when you're wearing sort of like all that headgear stuff, the motion capture dots, and also just like it is a very melodramatic movie, like I said, with a script that is a little too on the nose sometimes. And what's amazing about this movie is Alita is so real that there are moments that you don't buy the performance because it feels like you're watching an actor who didn't act well enough, because that's how good they get her face. Like that's a very backhanded compliment. Like I'm saying the movie doesn't always work emotionally for me, and that's a bad thing. But I thought that was an incredible testament to the CGI.
I don't want to nitpick too much. There was one aspect of her character that didn't quite, like the purely technical aspect of her rendering that didn't work for me is her mouth. There were times where it looked almost like ADR, even though it's not. I know it's not ADR. Just something about animating the mouth didn't quite work, but the physicality was absolutely wild, and yeah, it did lead to some of the weird moments you're talking about there.
Yeah, it's so good that you see performance flaws or whatever, or you don't buy it. You're like, that's not Alita the Battle Angel, that's an actress. You know, it's not. It's literally an animated character. It's amazing.
It's also so much of this movie is about the people around her also selling her. I forget the name of the guy who plays like her boyfriend in the movie, yeah. and Christoph Waltz, and a large portion of this movie is managed like it's about like how the tone is managed, because it is like a larger than life experience, because it is basically like a live action yet basically animated movie, like the way that we would expect sort of like not just like physics and stuff to work, but sort of like the broadness of the character archetypes at times. It requires so much commitment from those actors to sell, and I think they do for the most part a really good job with it, because the script really isn't that good when it comes to exposition, when it comes to trying to state, you know, sentimental things in a meaningful way. It can get a little bit too on the nose, but the performances generally worked to combat a lot of that clunkiness.
Yeah, Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali is a particularly fun addition to this movie as playing like the like if this was analogous to, I don't know, a Harry Potter movie. You know how there's like the dark arts professor who's the bad guy of each book, but then Voldemort's the big bad guy. Mm-hmm. So for this series, there's evidently something like that, which is not like really a spoiler. Like you know from the jump that like he's basically the bad guy for this movie, but he's being puppeteered in some ways by the broader bad guy that you don't really get to know much about in this first entry. It's very much a franchise thing. So he gets to do a lot of fun stuff where like he's literally being controlled by another person as his body is a conduit. So there's some fun physicality to that. There's multiple Academy Award winning actors in this movie. It's pretty interesting for such like, again, goofy material. But yeah, at the end of the day, all the issues I have with the movie where I'm like, this could have been better written on a individual dialogue level. You know, some of the editing is a little off and spotty in the first half of the movie. It's kind of weird. Like, you know, this movie was delayed and they kept redoing stuff and fixing things and making the technology better. And so weird, simplistic shit, just normal live action scenes with where the camera is and how it cuts in the first, like, I don't know, 20 minutes, I found to be a little bit odd. Or it's like, what did they cut out of this movie to, like, make it quicker? Because you can feel changes that aren't natural. But yeah, once it gets going, The action is totally tremendous. It's incredible. The sound design is really hard hitting in an effective way and interesting. It's definitely Robert Rodriguez's like most energetic and original direction of his career since like the 90s or I guess early 2000s when he was making stuff like Sin City. So yeah, it's a really cool movie that's maybe not for Evan and I, and maybe it was never going to be. But if it is for you, like if you're into this sort of anime stuff, I have to imagine it's just a killer adaptation. It's a $200 million anime movie, and that just doesn't happen. You don't get as expensive, as beautifully rendered movies. First of all, period. You don't get movies that are this good as far as like the graphics and what they've been able to accomplish, how much money they spent, how much time they spent. You don't get that every year, period, and you definitely don't get that for Japanese source material. So yeah, I mean it's a big win for what it is, despite the fact that I can't say I like loved the movie or whatever. It's a cool ass movie to come out in February.
It's an easy movie to make fun of because I think that we're very used to like the Joss Whedon version of a blockbuster that's much more acerbic than something like this. Like people think of Steven Spielberg when it comes to sentimentality, but sentimentality isn't just like in the sense of wonder. It's also in the sense of like payoff storytelling that James Cameron specifically likes to do. Like John says, hitting all these points in like a narrative, and he does that. And yeah, it can be easy to have a foul mood about it, but it's like John says, it really does seem to succeed at what it wants to be. You can armchair analyze weird symbols of the sexual awakening and the teenager and stuff, and if that makes you feel uncomfortable or not. But the movie, for the most part, is just all-out entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah, like, they want you to want to this teenage robot thing. That's for sure.
Right.
There's undeniable they sexualize the weird teenage robot thing that's like 300 years old. She's not really a teenager, but she is.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely some weird Freudian shit to get past with why people like this property so much and why James Cameron was so obsessed with making it for 20 years.
Weird Pinocchio with the girl stuff.
But the 3D's so good, so...
But my point is that's like part and parcel, I think, of a lot of, like, manga traditions that we don't... that we don't... Like, I don't necessarily know that much about. I'm sure that lots of people have talked about it and analyzed it in a smarter way than I could. It's the benefits and the negatives there.
Sure.
And I don't think that this movie goes in to challenge any of that is my point. I think it just wants to lift it up. It's like, so if it's not something that you're going to like, you're probably not going to like it. But if you like this stuff, even a little bit, you'll probably love it because it seems so effective at taking the best of what this material has to offer.
Yeah, Alita's final form, like, she's got hips and stuff like that, but it's not like the camera is sitting there in Michael Bay style up her skirt.
It could have been
way worse.
Yeah. It could have looked something like this. They had a fun photo booth thing where I got to become my own robot, a cyborg.
So yeah, if you're into big blockbusters / you're interested in anime and stuff like that, see Alita as big and as loud as possible. IMAX 3D, you can't go wrong. Apparently there's like 20 or 30% more image in the IMAX version of it that I read, which I could definitely see. There were a couple shots here, especially with characters like holding up swords and stuff. I was like, I wish I could see the end of that. And in IMAX, I guess I would be able to see it.
Right.
Also, Dolby Vision, it's one of the best movie-going experiences I've had in my entire life, seeing a Dolby 3D movie. It's easily the best 3D I've seen since Avatar. Just the glasses really fall off your face. It's so bright. So if you can see it in Dolby 3D, I know there's more and more Dolby Vision theaters popping up across this country. Please seek it out. Even like for nothing else, as a film fan, you just see a damn movie in Dolby 3D. Alita is the one you can see, and there's literally less than one movie per year. So I would say one every like 2 or 3 years at this point, where a 3D Dolby movie comes out. So yes, see the damn thing if you check those boxes. If not, it's not Titanic. Just so you know, like obviously, it is not an adult. It's not a movie for adults that don't like kiddie stuff. But it's like, well, okay, James Cameron's an epic filmmaker. I might as well. It's not Terminator either. Like, trust me, it's for the kids.
Stay warm out there, people. I know that it's very cold in much of the Northeast, but that's a great excuse to go see a movie.
Even though it doesn't come out until like Valentine's Day or whatever, and it's probably gonna be hotter by then.